everybody, back again, and today we are going over the treadle hammer that I built and hopefully finishing it up. I might want to do some more improvements or some more beautifying to it later. I'm definitely going to be modifying the anvil on this, but without further ado, let's show you guys what I built. So if you guys saw the live stream, you would have seen me cut up these panels and probably start to weld them in place before my phone died, which I didn't realize had happened, so the live stream cut short. I thought I filmed the entire thing, so I was rather upset, as you would imagine, that so much of the footage was lost on building this. But we'll go over in depth how this functions. The heart and soul of this are two parts: the hammer and the anvil, as you would imagine. This is just a cast iron 55 pound. If you've seen my older videos on my channel, this is actually the anvil that started it all on this channel, so it's only fitting that it becomes the first anvil to be the base piece for the treadle hammer. So we welded the cast iron anvil to the steel stand, and then I took some pieces of a skid steer bucket blade and made these uprights. To get them attached to the base, what I did is I took my angle grinder and I made a cut on either side to create a notch that came into about here. Then what I did was bend those out flat, so that way they sit down flat like this and support the bottom of these bars, because they are as wide at the base as they are at the top and all the way up. So that way I could weld them in all the way across. And I know the welds look like crap. This is why I'm a blacksmith, not a welder. Then I welded some railroad spikes on angles to support it a little more on the back end. We welded a slider, which you'll be able to see a little bit better on the other side, but that basically was a slider that I put in there so I could make sure that the hammer was perfectly level this way, so it wasn't leaning to one side or the other when I put the pin in. Then I welded that pin in place so the hammer can rotate on that pin. There's a pin that just goes through there with two washers on either side to make sure that this can't rotate in the shaft. In the spring box here, I have the spring attached to a hole in the top back plate up here. It then weaves down over a pin that is in the center here, and then back behind a pin, as you can clearly see there, to give the tension a straight shot to the back of the hammer handle. Now we come to the hammer portion. To tie it on to the spring, I did two separate wire loops twisted into two spiraled wires that then twist over each other. This is a 4-strand thick piece here because this is going to take the most amount of pressure pulling up on it constantly. These are 2-strand pieces of twisted steel baling wire that lead down through these two holes right here behind the anvil, down to this portion here where I have it wrapped around the head of the treadle. And to secure it in place, all it takes is 2 railroad spikes cut off halfway to lock that wedge in there. And on this side we do have a nice little forged in flower ornament and some nice little viney deals going on. Eventually I'm going to form this into a little monster head. That's why I left that weld there with so much excess. I wanted to kind of build up some material. These are the side lugs, and then these are the back plate welds, which I didn't weld very well, but this doesn't need to be a good weld. This is actually done this way on purpose, so I can cut that back plate off to access the spring easier if I need to, because it's not really there to support anything. It's just there to cover the back side to keep something from getting in there and jamming it up. And as far as it goes when it comes to function, since the down pull is directly behind the hammerhead, I barely have to apply any pressure at all to get that to actuate. It legitimately feels like that hammer is just kind of floating in space. So when I want to get on something, I have a lot of control. I can do just light little taps, or I can go and give it big strikes. Swinging a 12-pound hammer one-handed is actually quite a task, and I've done it for about 1.5 years now, and I figured it's time I made a machine to do that for me. So what we're doing in today's video is I got a piece of number 5 rebar, which I'm going to basically make some supports that weld up under the backside here, and then take a triangle shape down to the base of the stand on the backside of these legs, so that way it's got more support further out. I mean, it's not wobbly or anything. If I move this, the whole stand has to move in order for it to move. It's not going to break. But I just want to make this as sturdy as possible. So we're going to forge the rebar into some nice twists. I don't want it to, just be bare bones ugly. I want it to be kind of a pretty machine. I'm pretty proud of this machine. I first machine that I built. Got our two pieces, and now we're just going to go ahead and forge them to shape to create some supports that go on either side. All right, let's start the test drive, shall we? I had to replace these because one of them got caught down here and split. So I went ahead and put a little wedge in there just to some smooth metal. So when it rubs against it, it's rubbing against something smooth, so it shouldn't cut free anymore. So one conclusion I can draw right away is it works well, but it does like to slide around. So I'm gonna have to make a modification to this base at some point to make it more stable. But so far it's working great. Squared up the steel nicely. So we've got our bars forged out to where they're going to fit up just nicely to it for each size, for each side. So we got a shorter one, and that guy's going to weld up just right here, like so. And then this guy on the other side is going to weld up right about there. So let's go ahead and get it welded up. It's now a while later because I ran out of welding wire at the end of that last weld. So we're going to have to go ahead and weld the other side now because I just ran and got more welding wire. That is definitely a lot sturdier than it was before. There's no more jiggle to it, because it was jiggling a little bit when all that weight was just hanging on that end. But now, with these cross beams back here, we've sturdied this thing up substantially. So that gives me a lot of hope for this project, because this is going to make this last a lot longer, especially since it's not going to be jiggling around. So the next thing we're going to do is take a good old-fashioned decommissioned frag, and we're going to weld a bar inside of this decommissioned frag just at the base here. Then we're going to use this bar to weld this frag right on top of our hammer. And just like that, friends, we have affixed the spicy pineapple to our wonderful little machine. So now that we've got everything welded together, we've got all the supports and all the upright stuff done, we've got every bit of this finished, essentially. So now all we got left to do is paint this sucker. So I'm going to go ahead and tape off the face of the hammer, tape off my little pineapple friend, and tape off a couple of other things that we don't want painted. And then we are going to give this a paint job. So, as you can see, we've taped off all the surfaces that we don't want to get our paint on. So that way when we do paint this, which we're about to do, the only things getting painted are the stuff that we want, and we don't have to worry about sanding off or grinding off any paint later. So we've got a fresh coat of paint over the whole entire device. Now we're just going to go ahead and take our little horse scraper here, and we're going to go ahead and pop all the tape off of this guy and then call it a night. Here we have the upgraded anvil stand slash vise stand. Before, you guys would have seen I had my vise here. This anvil and my smaller jeweler's anvil, which is like a 20-pound. And you would have noticed that, you know, I didn't use this anvil almost at all. Very rarely used it for anything. This sledgehammer I used to swing with one hand, which was really counterproductive because I was doing way more work than I needed to accomplish what I wanted to at the anvil, simply because I didn't have something like this. This, as you saw, is a functional treadle hammer. It's nice and smooth, everything runs well, which I love about it. And yeah, we've got all of the surfaces repainted. Some of it's still drying. That's not why I'm not opening the vise. But I covered all the areas of the vise that need to actuate, so it should still run. The vise should still work perfectly. It just got a fresh new coat of black paint, just like everything else here did. The whole system looks like a brand new machine. Yesterday I built what you saw at the beginning of the video. Today we just did this little bit to, you know, pretty it up, stabilize it, and give it a little bit of ornamentation. So now you guys are going to see this grenade on the back of the hammer. I think we're going to call her La Bomba, or the Bomb. This hammer's name will be the Bomb. So I figured it's only fitting if we put a grenade on top of it. You know, just kind of fits in the shop with the flag and everything else that's in here, and gives the hammer a little bit of its own personality, I think. So my anvil is right here, my forge is right there. So in future videos, you guys are going to start seeing a lot more of this camera shot right here. This is something I've been working on for a while for my videos, is to try and get all of my main tools in one shot at any given time. So that's kind of one thing I've been working towards. Now in future videos, you'll be able to see the forge running in the background while I'm working at the anvil. I'll be able to zoom in on different parts to make editing a little smoother for you guys when you're watching the video, so there's less jump cuts and more just panning from place to place kind of stuff going on. And you'll see me be able to come over here. You'll be able to see me run the material through this hammer. You'll be able to see the work at the vise and the work at the anvil. So as you can see, like I said, I painted everything that isn't either going to be a surface coming in contact with hot material. So since this is going to get pounded on, I left that. Since this is going to hold hot material, I left that. This needs to move, so I let that stay. I didn't paint it because it needs to be able to slide freely for the vise to actuate. This is a little hold down that came with this stand. I'm going to leave that there because I might find a purpose for that in the future. And this old 55-pound anvil that used to be a, you know, super bright blue that lost its color through use is now back into use after a year or two on the sidelines because I had this big boy to use for a while. So this is my main workhorse, and now this is going to be one of my main workhorses again. We got our grenade fastened up there nice and cleanly. But we've got a nice clean looking spring box all down the inside. The spring looks nice and clean. This twisted wire really looks cool when it's painted like this. The camera's not really going to do it the most justice just because I'm filming this on a cell phone like all my videos. But we've got little cross members there. These are the welds that I showed you earlier. These are welded up there all the way down to the base on both sides to support the spring box even more. But all in all, I'm pretty pleased with how this is turning out. This is by far not done yet. I still have to weld a steel faceplate onto this cast iron anvil, which is something I plan on doing in the future. I'm gonna look up more about welding cast iron before I try this because it needs to be a strong weld. I'm also gonna end up making hardy tools that act as swedges to go underneath this. So I am gonna have a round bar swedge and some square bar swedges and things of that nature that go in the hardy hole. But the hammer portion of this build is finished at least as far as it needs to go. In the future, I might change some things. If I end up needing to modify some stuff, I probably will. But we're going to start off with this and see how it runs for a while. It only took me, again, about 2 days worth of work to get it to this stage where it's painted and ready. And now I'll be able to use it for a lot of future projects. So you guys will definitely be seeing this in future videos. But that does it for today's video. If you guys like what you've seen, do me a favor, do that thing right there. And until next time, God bless, stay sharp out there. If you're looking for a custom knife, sword, pole arm, whatever, check out the Etsy store. The link will be at the end of the video. And I'll see you guys in the next one.